The murderous Art the Clown is back, and this time he's spreading terror during the holidays. I find the Terrifier series as fascinating behind the scenes as it is on the screen. The original film was created on a shoestring budget but gained a huge cult following, thanks to Art the Clown's terrifying yet darkly humorous persona. He's a mix of Freddy Krueger's menace and Charlie Chaplin's slapstick silent humor. The first Terrifier made a name for itself when it featured one of the most disturbing slasher kills ever put on film, and it instantly cemented its place in horror history. The buzz exploded with Terrifier 2, which secured a theatrical release despite being nearly 2.5 hours long, making it the longest slasher movie ever made. It upped the ante with practical effects and a gruesome kill that made the original's most infamous scene look almost tame by comparison. I felt repulsed by the sheer brutality, yet I couldn't look away. I met director Damien Leone and Art the Clown himself, and they were both such normal, nice people. It was a surreal moment for a fan of this bizarrely compelling series. Now, with a respectable budget, Terrifier 3 marks a significant evolution for the franchise. This was my first time seeing a Terrifier film in the theaters, and while some reviews claimed that it was even more disturbing than Part 2, I'd argue that no moment quite surpassed the infamous scene from Part 2. But instead, Terrifier 3 delivers an overall more polished experience, packed with gnarly, grotesque practical effects that had the audience in my theater gasping and cringing multiple times. The elevated budget is evident in the new sets and special effects, but I did notice a slightly odd quality with the audio. It really felt like the entire movie was dubbed in post-production, but it didn't really detract from my liking of the film. The story picks up years after Part 2, and it follows the final girl and her younger brother as they are grappling with the trauma of surviving Art's wrath. While the movie does attempt to explore their emotional scars, it never fully succeeds. I'd say most viewers aren't watching this though for the drama. They're here to see what Art the Clown is going to do next. Despite the over-the-top violence, Terrifier 3 surprised me with a little bit of restraint in its opening prologue. Art, dressed as Santa Claus, terrorizes a family, but luckily the camera cuts away for some of the most disturbing parts, although you do still hear them, you just don't see them. It then segues into some dark comedy as Art tidies up after himself like he's the perfect house guest. This blend of horror and humor continues throughout the movie, with Art now joined by a disturbing sidekick who was introduced at the end of Part 2. She speaks, unlike Art, which I found actually diminished some of his silent, sinister charm. Now, what's remarkable about the Terrifier series is its unlikely popularity. Despite being one of the most graphic slasher franchises ever, it has become almost a cultural phenomenon. There's t-shirts and hats and even Art the Clown in costume ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It is clear this series has defied all odds. Now, for all of its gore, Terrifier 3 doesn't really feel that mean-spirited. There's an odd charm to Art the Clown, and interviews with the cast and director reveal them to be passionate, good-hearted people committed to pushing the boundaries of the slasher genre. That being said, this is not a movie that I can recommend to everyone. It's incredibly violent and disturbing, but for fans of slasher movies and practical effects, Terrifier 3 is a standout. It offers plenty to gasp, cringe, and marvel at. Practicing your chainsaw skills, bringing Christmas cheer, enjoying a treat after a hard night's work, really needing a bath, scaring subway passengers.